So today I'm going to show you how to build a customer support agent in N8N. This is for a fictional company called Billy's Boxing Gym, and users can text in to the support number and ask general questions about the gym, such as opening hours, membership prices, etc. And they can also ask specific questions about classes or their membership level, etc. And the agent can interact with the back end of the gym, so the CRM that they're using, and they can take actions such as booking them onto classes, cancelling their memberships, and things like that. For the back end of the gym, I've built a simple example in Airtable, so just two tables, one with members and one with classes, so the agent can interact with this. And then we've also got a FAQ file which I just generated with ChatGPT with around 30 questions and answers around this fictional gym, and that's been uploaded to a Pinecone vector database so that the agent can easily search that contextually and get the correct answers. Okay, so before I get into showing you how all this works, let's bring up Telegram and we'll do a quick demo. So I'll say, hey, what's my membership level? So I'm using obviously Telegram as the interface here, but you could use text messages, WhatsApp, even Messenger, or a chat box on your site. So asking me for my email address so it can let me up in the system. So I'll provide one from the database. So you can see here, membership is premium, so it's looking me up there. And it says, you have a premium membership. Okay, so I'll say, when's the next ladies only class? And this is going to look up in the table on the classes when the next ladies only class is. Obviously it'd be a bit more filled out usually, but this is just an example. So next ladies class is December the 1st. Great, can you add me to that class please? Okay, you've been added to the ladies only class on December the 1st at 7 PM. So if we check here, we can see that in the ladies only class there is one member, number 3, which is Emily. So that's all worked. Other thing we can do is ask general questions about the gym, which is feeding from the FAQs section. So for instance, what time does the gym open today? Going to search the vector database, find the most relevant info, bring it back, and give me an answer. So today it's open 6 till 10, and just one more. Do I need to bring my own boxing balls? Cool. So that's a fairly comprehensive answer. So this has been taken from, if I find, where is it? There you go. It's found this in the vector database and it sent it back. The agent has recovered that information and then it's sent me an answer based on that information. So that's how that all works. It's obviously a very simple prompt in terms of how the messages are sent and how the agent communicates with the user. It's all very, feel free to reach out, enjoy the class, that kind of stuff. But you can tweak all that, and you can give it a specific personality. You could have it act as one of your employees, for instance. If people know the staff that are in charge of responding to people, you could give it some examples, and then people would feel like they were actually communicating with someone at your gym or service or whatever it is that you're doing this for. Billy's Boxing Gym does not exist, just an example. Quick shout out to Miguel's Boxing Gym in Brixton. That's my local club, which does exist. I should probably sell them this. Okay, let's get rid of Telegram and let's get into how this works. So, simple Telegram trigger, just pick the bot to connect with. Then you've got a simple if node here, which just if the message is equal to start, then ignore it, because that's how Telegram works. When you start a Telegram bot, That's how it works. In reality, this is not necessary because you might be using a text message or whatever. Then just a quick edit fields to set the input as text, so we can use that in the future. It's probably not necessary, to be honest, that step. This is from a legacy build. And then we get the agent. So this is the main part of the whole agent system, obviously. So let's have a look. So we've got a tools agent, and the prompt is the input. So we're taking the text that we just set in the edit fields section before, and then the most important bit of any agent build is the agent prompt. So it's quite comprehensive. It took me a while to kind of hack through this. I meant to put this video out last week, but it took me a long time to figure out how to get this done. So a quick summary of this. The important parts are the role at the top. So you're a customer support agent for Billy's Boxing Gym. Your job is to help the customer with their inquiries, etc. It's very important that you always provide the current date and time, because when you saw earlier when I asked when does the gym open today, then if it didn't have that information, then it wouldn't know when today was. So it can get the information on the opening times, but it couldn't say it opens today at this time. It could say weekdays it opens this time, Saturdays, Sundays this time. We'll come back to this in a second, and then it says what tools it has access to. So you have access to memory, and you'd only use this as a last resort if you can't get the info from tools easily. This is something I put in because it was more of a testing feature, because normally you'd have individuals texting in with different numbers, and you could look them up that way. But because I'm using the same Telegram bot, sometimes it kept going back to memory and it was fetching data from previous chats when I wanted to start again. So I could easily remove this, but I've just left it in because it still works. And then you list the tools it has access to. So there's a few. This is the major stuff here. So the vector store, that's the FAQs thing here. This is a Google Doc, which has been uploaded to the vector store. So all that information is in there. So you have to say that to use this for general FAQs on the gym for general questions. Then you've got a search users. In fact, I'll come out of this in a second. I'll run through all these properly. But we've got search users, search classes, and add to class. And it's a bit of information about when you should call these tools. So for instance, add to class is only going to work to update the Airtable if you have both the user record ID and the class record ID, because in that tool, it requires both to be able to create a linked record. Then we go down to this section, which is critical rules, and this is just kind of reinforcing the stuff that's very important in order for this whole agent automation system to work. So when the user asks about classes, use the search classes tool, store the class record ID for booking, and then you set this in the JSON above. Again, I'll come back to this in a minute because it's quite complex. Similar for when the user provides an email, search users, store their user record ID, and then to add to the class, you must have both record IDs. Use this tool, and then do another thing with the JSON above. Always maintain the JSON structure. You can see that's repeated several times throughout this thing. It's just to reiterate to the model that it is very, very, very important. Store previous messages in memory content. Again, I'll come back to that. Keep the record IDs, all that kind of stuff. And then just another final reminder of all the really, really important stuff. You can't overstate the things that are mission critical to making an agent or anything like this work. You cannot overstate them enough. If you think you've done it too much, add another one at the end in block capitals saying, do this, or the world will end. So again, I'll come back to this in a second. I'm going to jump out of here and go into the tools. So these are the tools that we have. So there's a vector store tool. So I'll go into this first. So this is quite standard in agents. It's a tool which connects to a vector store, such as Pinecone, and it requires a model and the vector store, and then the vector store needs an embeddings OpenAI node as well. So I've covered this in a previous video, and there's lots of other videos as well out there that are explaining Pinecone in detail. I'm not going into a huge amount of detail here, but you just have to basically select the Pinecone index and the namespace. That's where I uploaded this information. So the agent can access this when it needs to get general information on the gym. And then it's got these three tools. So search users by email. So this is slightly more interesting. So because I'm using Airtable, we can use, they've got set nodes for this already. So what we're doing here is we are searching for a record from this base, from this table. So we see it's the Blaze Boxing Gym, the members table, and we're searching by formula. So email, which is obviously this column here, equals, and then this here is some JavaScript within NAN, which this is a new feature called From AI. I covered it a bit in a previous video as well. But basically this function says that the agent should look at this and it should determine the input that it puts there based on the context it has. So obviously in the conversation we had before, it said my email address is like emilylovesqueen@gmail.com. So it's telling the AI model to think, right, what is, so the description, the variable name is email, and this is the description, the email address of the user. So it can take that context and say, right, that's almost certainly going to be the email address that was provided by the user. So the model will insert that here. So the actual formula that comes out will be email equals emilylovesqueen@gmail.com, which would return this row. And it will return that row, and it will show us the all the information about that user, including the record ID, which we need. Similar for search classes, it's the exact same thing. Call this module to find info on classes based on type of class. And it's the same thing. And I've just listed out here what the options are, just to make it a bit more clear. So it'll do the same thing there. And then with add to class, we've got, again, I've reiterated here that only call this tool when you have both the class record ID and the members record ID, because down here we need to do two things. We need to use the ID of the class record ID to update, and then also the user record ID, so that because we've got a linked record here in Airtable, it needs the member ID to add to the class ID. This is probably a bit more complicated than it needs to be, because I'm using Airtable and it's not obviously set up to do this naturally. In reality, you would have a CRM system or something along those lines, which would have an API and specific endpoints for these things, and it would be much easier to do. So it'd be things like, book on class, and you just have a simple JSON body input to do that. But because I'm having to do it through Airtable, because I don't have any gym CRM system, because why would I? I'm having to hack it around a little bit. So this was actually harder than it seems to get correct, which is why I've integrated some other things, which I'll get into in a second. So that's all the tools. The other thing that it has access to is memory. So in previous videos I've used the standard buffer memory, which is just, it's stored locally on n8n, but that's not at all, it's not really scalable, and it's not very practical, and it's just stored very temporarily and not permanently. With Postgres chat memory, so I'm using Supabase, you can store a lot of conversation information against, for instance, a user ID or a user email or a user phone number, and then you've got that stored long term that you can call back to in future conversations. So even a few weeks down the line, if someone messages in and says, hey, I asked you to cancel my membership, then the agent has access to all the previous conversations that we've had, and it can then respond in a more accurate way. Whereas without that, it would just be wiped at some point, and it would have no context about the previous conversations. And the last thing the agent has access to is just standard OpenAI chat model. I always just use GPT 4.0. You could probably get away with 4.0 mini, but for this purposes, I'd rather just have the highest quality model available, because the cost is still pretty minimal unless you're doing it at huge scale. So a problem I ran into when doing this was that the agent wasn't properly remembering the user record ID and the class record ID. So sometimes it was making up these record IDs when it came to add to a class, and the two of them have to be correct. Otherwise, it's not going to work, and it will add a mystery membership number here and a mystery class here, and it just won't work. So what I've done is integrated this chat memory manager, and what this does, it allows the agent to write some extra information into the memory that is not passed to the user. So this is writing some system information, and what it's putting in there is the output.memory, which comes from the agent. So let's go back to the agent for a sec. So this is the bit that I said I'd come back to. So we're asking the agent to always respond in this JSON format with this exact structure, because we want to separate out the message from the memory. So what we're doing here is the message this would normally be the output of the agent, just be this. But what we want to do is we want to do two things. We want to send a message to the user, and we also want to add some stuff to memory. So we want to put in the content. Also, we want to store the class record ID and the user record ID. And this is the main thing that was causing it to fail, but when I was testing it, is because it couldn't quite remember the class record ID and the user record ID, so it was making it up. It's also got the last class name and the last email. So it's just storing that in the memory, and it's putting that straight into the Postgres memory that's connected to the agent. So I'll jump out again and go into the memory manager. So you can see that the system, the bit of the memory that's being updated here is the system message. So it's not being sent to the user, and it's not a message that's being sent. It's taking the memory section of that JSON. So once again, this is being added in to the memory, but it's not being sent to the user. Without this node, everything would be saved to the memory would also be sent to the user, which is not what we want. So in the agent, because we have require specific output format selected, it then says connect an output parser on the canvas to specify the output format you require. So this appears, the output parser, then we connect it to the auto-fixing output parser. And this is just, there's no options here. But what you connect here is a model, just a standard chat model, and then we have this structured output parser. And then you can copy in the exact structure of the output you want. So if you look at this, you can see it's very much the same structure as what we've asked the agent to output. So this will look at the output, see if it matches that structured output. If it doesn't, it will try again. And it will keep trying again a few times until it gets it right. So if the AI agent it's a bit of a safety measure. So if the agent tries to put out the wrong structure, it will come down here. It will check again, see if it's okay. If it's not, it will run it through this model again to try and redo it, and it shouldn't take more than one attempt to refix this. And it will send it back, and then it will be put out there. And then, yeah, once it goes through to there, then it just gets sent back to the user via Telegram. So here we're putting out getting the chat ID from the previous Telegram trigger, and then the text it's outputting is the message. So it's taking the output dot message, which is from the agent here in the response. So it's taking this and it's outputting that and only that. So that's how all that works. Hopefully you can see the potential of the kinds of things this could do. This is, again, like most of my videos, it's a really simple example of the kinds of things that are possible. Like these tools here, I've just built a simple Airtable and used these. But again, in reality, you'd have a whole suite of tools it could use, and you might even have a sub-agent. So you might have a classes sub-agent, which has then got a bunch of tools it can use. So search users by email, find classes, find classes with available slots, book user onto slot, that kind of thing. And then you might have other agents that do similar things with regards to membership, like renew membership, check membership level, cancel membership, that kind of stuff. So you can give these agents almost unlimited numbers of tools and sub-agents. And again, the vector store tool, this can be, I've just put one document in there with a simple set of things, but you could set this up so that it all syncs from a Google Drive folder, and you just throw all your information in there, and whatever questions anyone could have, it will be able to answer. And it can continually update this over time with user information as well. As always, I'm going to make this template available to everyone for free. Don't worry, I'm not setting up a paid school community like everyone else. All I ask is that you subscribe to my newsletter, and you'll be able to access this template and all the other templates that I've shown in my previous and future videos. If you're enjoying this content, please do subscribe to my newsletter and join the 520 and counting people that are a part of it. Also subscribe to the YouTube channel. I've got a lot more videos coming out, hopefully over the next 2 weeks. So yeah, I'll see you in the next one.